Back to another live episode of the Relevant Recruiter Show. I'm your host, Donnie Gupton, and today we're going to be talking about recruiting excellence with my friend, Allie Milbrath. Allie is the founder of Quinn Roberts Company, which is an executive search company that really focuses on VC and PE-backed organizations. And so today, Allie's going to talk about her journey in recruitment. She's going to talk about what she kind of sees as the gap in the recruiting industry right now of, truly becoming a really, really good recruiter. And then we'll take the last few minutes and talk about some of the work that Allie and I did together in the Relevant Recruiter program. So if you're with us live right now, if you can go in the comments and just let us know that you're here, you can hear us, maybe go in the comments, let us know where you're located right now. Allie, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. So we won't touch on the fact that you're a Green Bay fan and I'm a Niner fan and what happened.
And I appreciate you lowering your camera so I don't have to stare at the 49ers.
Drop that up right there. So,
no,
we had a discussion before. She made me push this down so she didn't have to see that and throw open her mouth throughout this. So, but we don't need to discuss the track record of the Niners and Green Bay in the playoffs over the last couple of years. So we're going to go ahead and take this and shift this into Allie. Just give us the background. I mean, how did you get started in recruiting, in general? I know you probably didn't go to college for it. So how'd you get in this industry?
Right. I mean, I don't think most people intend on going into recruitment. It's not something people, that's not what they're going to college to do or planning on doing. I think like most people, it just kind of fell into my lap. Long story short, when I graduated college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I went and I actually met with a recruiter and I thought, wow, what she does is so cool. You get to talk to people, kind of match them up with, opportunities that might be good for them, align with what they're looking to do. And the very next day, they actually had a posting for a recruiter. So it was just, great timing. I reached out to her and said, hey, I am super interested. I think that this is something that I would really enjoy. Got the job. I was in staffing for 2 years. After that, I went to an executive search firm, which was also in a startup mode. So I got the best of both worlds. I got to be a recruiter in a company that scaled. I think I was employee number 8. We had 200 plus employees. So got to work on some really cool projects. I was lucky enough to have a CEO and a director of sales really help me and mentor me along the way. So working on searches, I probably had no business working on when I was 25 years old. But really, in addition to that, being able to see the background of a business growing and all the things that go into that, which led me, I spent maybe 12 years at that firm and decided to go out on my own. So I have just been really fortunate in my journey to be able to see, how to grow a business and be, mentored by the right people.
Nice. That's awesome. That's such a unique experience that you got to go not only learn the recruitment, but I think it's cool that you got to be a part of a startup too. I mean, that must have been invaluable for you as you went on your own journey to start your own business to kind of be a part of the startup right away.
Yeah, definitely. I'm an athlete, so I've always had kind of that grit and that, work ethic and, just that mentality. But I think then to be in that environment, in a professional environment, grit, I mean, it was gritty to the nth degree, and I loved it. So it was good.
Awesome. We found the other Green Bay Packers fan out there, Cassandra. Cassandra Rutledge is brave enough to say "Go Pack, go" on here. So
she is a 4-star girl.
All right. You know Cassandra then. All right. Hey, come on, be my backup for the show. Yeah. So there's a lot of people right now, and I'm speaking to a ton of people that are looking to take that leap from either corporate recruiter or an agency recruiter to finally going out on their own. What inspired you? What was a part of the process for you to go yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do this?
I think it was partly the point of my life I was in. I started a family in conjunction. The search firm I was with was going through a lot of change, and it was just kind of like my personal life, professional life colliding on how am I going to make this all work and feel fulfilled on really both sides of my life and really integrate them. So it was half timing, half I just believe in myself. I entrepreneur.
Right.
I had LOIs to buy a couple of businesses kind of at the same time as I was exploring doing my own recruitment. And recruitment just, it made the most sense. I'm super passionate about it. The timing in my life was right. And I knew that there were better experiences to be had.
Right.
There's a stereotype about recruiters for a reason. And I feel like I spend a lot of time trying to debunk the reputation of recruiters. So
Yep.
there's a passion for that. It's proving people wrong, and really showing the market, this is what your experience should be when
Right.
working with a recruiter.
Yep. Now, I don't know if you remember this specifically, but usually when you go out and start your own business, there's some fears or limiting
Oh,
beliefs.
yeah.
What was kind of your biggest one, and what did you do to overcome that?
Um, well, my story is actually kind of funny because I'm, in this mindset of like, what do I do next? I had gone contract for a year to let my non-compete run its course. And, it was just one of those moments. I, out of the blue, one day got a phone call from somebody from a really well-known company saying, hey, I heard you went out on your own. I've heard good things. I know I heard you started your own company, and I didn't, but I said yes. I did. So it was just like in the moment, leading up to that, it was kind of this: so what should I do? Am I good enough? Imposter syndrome. And I got the call, and I said yes.
Right.
And that is what started this whole thing. So, it's not like this was a well thought out plan. I didn't put together a business plan. It was in that moment. I'm like, you know what? It's all kind of been leading up to this. I'm going to
Right.
say yes. That day I filed for my EIN. I created a website. I mean, that's literally how it was born.
Right.
So it kind of came from a place of, I didn't quite know exactly what I wanted to do, but this was the space I played in,
Right.
and timing it all made sense.
Yeah. I think it's really cool. I think it's awesome for other people to hear because so many people are looking for the stars always to align. It's like, okay, when all these things add up in order is when I'm going to start the business. And it's like, you're just proof of like, no, go. And we'll
Totally.
figure it out along the way. Right.
Totally. And I
Yeah.
mean, my husband was coming off of being in between jobs. We had 3 kids that were 3 and under. I was shortly thereafter pregnant with my 4th. Like, we had all the reasons not to do this, but never looked back. I mean, once I kind of got started and realized it doesn't have to be as difficult as I think a lot of people think it's
Right.
going to be. So I think just having that confidence and saying yes was really what started this all.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's fast forward to today now. And, it's so interesting. Especially with where I sit, I have so many conversations with, recruiting firm owners out there. And man, like this is usually like there's a common trend, right? Where like, hey, market's slow and, or candidate driven, whatever. And this seems to be case by case like it's never been before. What are you experiencing? Like, what are you seeing in the market? Are you busy? You have job orders? Is it crickets? Is it slow? Like, what's going on in Allie's world?
Yeah, I mean, we've been super steady. In fact, Q1 for us was a blockbuster Q1 for us.
Wow.
And it's been steady all year. I'm with you. I talk to a lot of recruiters too, and it
Mhm.
it truly does seem case by case.
Right.
I think the overall um, you know message in the market is that it's difficult right now, and I think there's reasons why it's difficult for
Yeah.
many recruiters, but I block out the noise,
Yeah.
right?
Smart. Yep.
It's I know my network, I know my worth, and so I kind of block all of that out. I think you get all of these recruiters that are talking to each other like, man, this is hard. I haven't had a job order in 6-8 months. You know, what do I do from here?
Right.
You have to block that out and really focus on you and the market that you can help.
Yep.
So I'm with you. I'm hearing kind of a smorgasbord of
Yeah.
what's happening, and yeah, like it's happening. There are recruiters that are really struggling, but there's recruiters that are thriving too.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Now, I mean, and I know this is just kind of what is your opinion? Like, what do you see or what do you think would be the reason why you're thriving and why others are struggling, so to speak? And I know that there's a lot of, variables here, but just in your own words, like, what do you think it is?
I think that I think people don't nurture relationships the way that they need to.
Right.
I think that perhaps they don't deliver the way that they need to continue to get business.
Yep.
I see the way a lot of recruiters out there are working, and it makes me like, oh, don't do that. Just don't do that. And you won't have these problems. We're not immune to it. It could certainly happen to us where, we dry up for a few months, but I truly think that nurturing your network, nurturing relationships, it sounds so simple. And I think a lot of people think that they're doing it, but they're not doing it effectively.
Yep.
So I think that's a big part of it is I think opportunities can be right in front of you. You just don't realize it. Because you're kind of stuck in this mindset of like, oh, things are really hard right now. I have to do these 10 different things, where it's like, focus on your network, focus on your relationships, and good things will come.
That's great advice. What you focus on expands, so you focus on the bad, it's going to be more bad. If you focus on the good, it's going to be more good. So you mentioned something early, Allie, about, and I'm just going to throw a little, Daniel Hernandez now is saying Jordan Love for 2025 MVP, go Pack, go. I mean, it's just getting, where are my Niners fans at? Anybody else down here a Niners fan?
Crickets there.
Yeah. It's because I invited Wisconsin. All right. So you mentioned something earlier about, like, since you've been in the game, it's kind of like educating your market on what good looks like, and kind of really separating yourself from the recruiters. And you just kind of talked about, like, some recruiters just not delivering. So, how has the recruiting landscape changed in recent years? And what do you think recruiters should pay attention to, or trends they should be aware of as we're moving forward here?
I think that there has been an influx of recruiters going out on their own, which I love. I think there's, there's great value in that for the right type of recruiter. But I think a lot of them go out and it's, working contingent, it's throwing darts. I think a lot are throwing darts and coming up short.
Yep.
And so I think just as a recruitment industry in general, we're kind of fighting against that. Again, it goes back to always trying to overcome these stereotypes that these recruiters that, they might not belong on their own. They haven't set themselves up for success in this world. I think that there's almost a lack of discipline and commitment. And when that happens, you can't be successful. Yeah. So I think this influx of recruiters trying to go out on their own, or people coming from outside of industry and they're like, oh, recruiting looks really cool. Like, I should just jump into it. It's really easy. It's not. Like, there's a lot of process, structure. You need to have the ability to connect with humans and to be able to flush out the garbage that's out there, the ability to interview. And it's not just throwing candidates and hoping something sticks. And if it doesn't, you're going to move on to the next thing in hopes that you have success there. So I think discipline and commitment is, I think that's a big piece missing in the recruiter market.
Yep. And those of you listening live, we're with Allie Milbrath, the owner of Quinn Roberts Company. As you can hear, if you're listening live, that she takes this seriously and does it at a very high level. So we're going to dig into some of those practices right now. Julie Bulmer actually just asked a question based off your previous, which was, how do you nurture your network more effectively? Do you have any kind of tactical things that you do specifically you'd be willing to share?
I think the way I do it is so natural that it's one of those things where again, it might be a case by case scenario, but it is being really authentic. Yeah. Be authentic with your network. If you want metrics around it, I try to reach out to 5 to 10 people in my network per week. And just ask them, hey, what are you seeing in the market? What's going on with you? Come from an authentic place. And I think people know that about me, that when I connect with them, it is not to hit a metric. I mean, it's my own company, so I don't need to hit any metrics, to show anyone. But for me, it's to really keep a pulse on what's happening in my markets that I work in, is making sure just to go out and connect with your network. It doesn't have to be a super formalized discussion. It really even shouldn't be. Right. But coming from an authentic place. So, if you want to put metrics around it, for me, it's 5 to 10. I think for a lot of people, it might need to be 20 to 25, kind of depending on where you are in your career. But come from a place of, how you doing? What are you seeing? Here's what I'm seeing. Make sure you're bringing value to them in the conversations as well.
Yeah, I love that. And just kind of follow up, Julie, as you can kind of hear the banter that Allie and I keep going back and forth with around the Green Bay Niners. Well, that's formed from us nurturing each other over the years. And, yeah, we've worked together, but over the years, like that's how we keep in touch is like, Allie's nephew's been on Green Bay and other teams and talking, so it's like just those little things that makes it natural for an Allie and I to just have conversation and do outreach.
Yeah. And I don't know why that seems to be a barrier for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people come from this place of like, oh my gosh, I have to have something super smart to say in order to reach out to this person.
Yeah.
No, what I do, I just act like I'm sitting across the bar from somebody having a conversation.
Right.
It doesn't have to be super formalized, and you don't have to have this like huge deliverable at the end for them. Just check in.
Yep. Yeah. The more scripted and clunky it sounds, the more it's not nurturing, the more it's like you're actually doing a job instead of just like building a relationship. So I love that. Kind of going back into some of the best practices, things. And, I really, it's almost like you're challenging the status quo of the industry, which is everybody's looking for the easy way. And that's kind of, I agree. I think that's what I actually just recorded a video last week, which is like, it's really easy to win in the recruiting industry right now because everybody's looking for easy. So if you're willing to do a little bit of the hard, it's going to be an easy path, for success. So, getting into like some specifics, like what do you believe are the key qualities of a successful recruiter, in 2024?
I think somebody that can actually qualify candidates effectively. I think this is an area where there is a gap in the market. Again, I think a lot of people kind of go high level and just hope and pray that the candidate's going to work out. I think really being able to build that relationship with the candidate, understand their levers, what triggers them, is this really the right opportunity for them, and not being afraid to be like, they look really great on paper. They check a lot of the boxes, but they're missing two of these. I think a lot of recruiters would pass them forward without, telling their client, these are the two, areas that I'm concerned about. And I'm not talking hard skills. I'm talking, really getting in and getting to know the person. I think interview skills are lacking. I think that sense of commitment is lacking. I think, in order to be successful in this market, you got to commit. And I think that a lot of recruiters are really missing process and structure. And again, I think the noise gets to them and they're, constantly thinking about, oh my gosh, once this is over, what am I going to do next? If you have process and structure in place, those thoughts aren't going to, make you not be able to do your day-to-day job.
Right. You're going to get to it. It's already built into the plan. Yeah. No, that takes a lot. That's a lot of freedom. And it's funny how structure, I think people think structure confines them, and structure actually creates so much freedom for life, business, and movement. It's one of the things we talk about in the program is like, what are your routines? What are your habits? It shouldn't be mine. It should be yours, but you should have them so that you know exactly what your structure of your days look like so you can go execute and play hard. So, I really like that. What do you think? And I know this is just definitely another opinion because it's like, hey, you can run your recruiting business anyway or executive search firm anyway, but what do you believe is like the responsibility of the actual external recruiter? Like, is it, some people are like, just submit resumes and then that's the job, right? Like, what do you believe is like, what is your job from start to finish?
Okay. I'm like super passionate about this. I'm glad you brought it up because I feel as third party, recruiters, you have an enormous responsibility, enormous. Not only are you looking to put somebody who's likely gainfully employed into a new opportunity. I mean, think about that and what that does to their life and their family. It trickles down. But for an organization, I feel an intense amount of pressure and responsibility to make sure that I'm putting the right people into my clients' organizations, knowing that they are going to have impact that's going to go beyond this particular role. A lot of times we're placing, VP, C-suite individuals where they might go in there and trailblaze, right? Or they might go in there and set ablaze.
Right.
I just feel so much responsibility to my clients to put the right people there, and to my candidates to make sure I'm putting them in the right situation. There are certainly been times where I've been the one to pull the plug when it's really hard to pull the plug. And I think to be a successful recruiter, you've got to take those blows. I've had clients that are ready to extend offers and I uncover something about the candidate. I could not say anything, right? but that's not the responsible thing to do.
Right.
I think a lot of recruiters out there just wouldn't say anything, and I will pull the plug. Same
Right.
thing with the candidate. If I'm sniffing something out that, is going to negatively impact their career, their family, where I just feel like it's not going to work out, I'm going to pull the plug for, with the candidate or work
Right.
with them to say, hey, this might not be right.
Yeah.
So I cannot scream it from the mountaintops loud enough. Like, if you don't feel that immense responsibility to your clients and to your candidates, like, please just leave the recruitment industry.
I love it. I love the bold statement right there. I mean, I think that's, we've talked about like there is no barrier to enter, right? It's not
Yeah.
like you go get your recruiting license, like a real estate license. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that there's like a scarcity, overall scarcity that kind of drives this industry, right? And this is scarcity of like, oh, am I ever going to get a new client? Oh, here's the only candidate that qualifies and I don't have money, so I'm going to submit them anyways.
Yep.
So I'm driven by my own dollar to make sure that, and so it's like, yeah, there's definite need for more legitimate business people that are operating, doing it the right way and operating out of abundance, that knows there's tons of clients, tons of candidates, and I'm going to do it the right way. And I'll actually be rewarded financially more by doing it the right way than cutting the corners. So,
Right. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of business models, unfortunately, kind of rely on that mentality to
Right.
be successful.
Yeah.
Just to let's let it slide. We need the
Yep.
billings. So I think, being careful on how you build your business model is certainly something to think about.
Yeah. What are your opinions on that? I mean, are you contingent? You retained? I mean, what do you believe in?
Retained.
Yeah. And
Retained.
what are your thoughts of that?
I think, the whole contingent is you're going to try to fill it, and retained is you're going to fill it.
Right.
It's that level of commitment, and it's, how deep you get into the organization and how deep you get into these searches, and you're exclusive.
Right.
I think in the contingent world, you are competing with, however many contingent recruiters they throw on there on the search, versus retained. You have that partnership.
Right.
So 100% retained. I don't do anything contingent.
Now, because I know I work with a lot of people that struggle with the mindset of like getting to the contingent, or the retained kind of world. And I think that mindset is they make it, at least in my head, they make it bigger in their own head than it really, is. But like, what are the key, things that you feel like you're doing when you present yourself to a client that's different, as a retained, executive search firm versus just a contingent firm?
I think coming in with the approach that I'm your partner. Like, I am
Right.
an extension of you. I am going to market and I am representing you. Carving out, like, we're literally carving out the time for your organization. And we're not going to give up, right?
Yep.
If it gets hard, like, we're retained, like, we are on this, we are going to find you the right person. And I think with contingent, like, there's just always that thought of, if it's not going well, I can bow out.
Yep.
With retain, there's not. So it's, man, I'm hitting a roadblock. What am I going to do to get past that? Versus contingent, you do have that opportunity to be like, you know what, like, this job over here, I think I have a better chance of filling it. So I'm going to spend my time over there.
Yep.
I know that there's great contingent recruiters out there. I don't mean to knock, any recruiter. I just find, for me, and what we have found successful, is having that true partnership relationship. And I think that's what's helped me grow my business literally 100% through referrals. And again, that goes to nurturing relationships.
Right.
I think that is what has set us apart.
Yep. Yep. All right, cool. Good comment, Daniel. I never thought of recruiting as sales, but I'm more of a Sherpa. I do my best to understand the client's needs and be the guide for the process. I love that. It's a great way to look through that.
Yep.
There's a gap in the marketplace that you've discovered, Allie,
Yep.
when it comes to, kind of what we're hitting on right now, just the education and how to become not just a recruiting firm that bills, but like a recruiter that is playing at their highest level.
Yep.
So what's your experience? Like, what have you seen just generally in the marketplace, and what are you doing to change it?
Yeah. So I talk to a lot of recruiters, and I talk to a lot of people who want to be recruiters. But like you're saying, there's not this entryway, or, there really isn't any great formalized training. I think from a corporate standpoint, there's some trainings out there, but I don't even want to go there talking about corporate recruitment. That's a whole other session. But I've just found that there's no regulation. Everyone's kind of doing it their own way, and it's messy. So I'm actually creating a training. It's called So You Want to Be a Recruiter. And it's really teaching the market, specifically third-party recruiters, on how to recruit, and on each stage of the process, the things you want to think about, along with, formalized templates, and, how to interview with formalized templates, because I think that interviewing has changed so much. Or I shouldn't say that. I think that, we've been so focused on behavioral based interviewing, and tell me about a time that we're not truly understanding how to interview, kind of rethinking the way we interview to really get to know a candidate. So putting together this training to help third-party recruiters.
Nice. Now, what about kind of somebody, because I know a lot of folks that are listening have, probably been in the game, for a couple of years, 10 years, 5 years. Where do you think they're going to find value going through a training like yours? If they're kind of an experienced recruiter, what kind of gaps are you trying to, fill? And I know that's obviously case by case, but like when you built this, and what were you inspired by for that?
Well, I think a lot of people went into the recruitment industry when there wasn't any, structure and not a lot of training. So they've been doing it the same way, for the last, whether it's 2 years, 10 years. And I think a lot of them kind of get to a point where they feel stuck.
Yep.
Is this the right way to do things? Is this why I'm struggling?
Right.
To really think, maybe I just never learned the proper way to recruit, and maybe I'm just not thinking about the right things in the process, to really help people. Because recruitment, our friend Ben Bonnell, he actually posted something a few days ago about the failure rate of recruiters,
Right.
And the number that make it past year 1, year 5. I mean, it's many don't make it, but those that do, there's still likely a lot of room for improvement. So the program's really going to be, it's not designed around a 1-year recruiter versus a 10-year recruiter. It's just designed around recruitment and best practices and what you need to think about in the process.
Right. Now, share a little bit more, if you can, about like your track record. Like what's going to entice me? Allie, I've heard it. I'm fired up. I know you. I'd buy right away. But like for those that are listening, it's like, why would I want to go through Allie's training?
Yeah. Well, I think one of my favorite stats that I have is that, 100% of my business comes from referrals. We'll talk a little bit about your program and how that helped enhance that for me. But that's proof in the pudding, right? People tell people about, using Quinn Roberts, and just really our effectiveness. We fill 98.9% of searches that we have. 95% of our candidates are still with the company 3 years later. All of our statistics are there. I'm very proud of our track record. And that's something that, I'd certainly get into more in the program, but I think just kind of surface level for today's conversation, Yep. Those are 3 statistics that, I feel we're pretty proud of.
Yeah, that's exciting. When do you plan on launching that?
Likely September 1st. If there's recruiters that want to talk about it, that want to be kind of part of the beta program, I'm happy to start earlier with you. But we're looking at September 1st.
Excellent. Yeah. So one of the things, obviously, with my coaching program is, I'm not focused on anything that has to do really with recruitment, other than the fact that I help recruiters. My program is much more focused on, branding, growing the business, marketing systems and things like that. And so that's one of the things that you kind of saw in the marketplace after going through my program and others, was there's a need more for just the blocking and tackling of recruitment. Yeah.
Yep. For sure.
Cool.
For sure.
Let's talk about our work together. I mean, it's been 4 or 5 years now since
Yep.
it's come out, but if you remember,
of course, I still implement a lot of the best practices.
Yep.
So
what were some of what was the biggest takeaway for you, with you being a recruiting expert? Like, what were some of the gaps that I was able to help you fill?
Yeah, I think just understanding the importance of brand, and how to go to market with it, and having it be a natural way. Because I think a lot of the times, you can tell when it's not natural or
Right.
authentic. And that's something I really learned in the program. I think learning better ways to reach out to your market, that's been a huge value to me, and things that I wasn't thinking about prior to 2020. And that's also interesting because we were partnered in 2020 when it was like the weirdest, recruitment landscape, and kind of a weird time to go through the program.
Yeah.
But I will say, that was a time where most recruiters were really struggling. And I felt like that's some of my most productive time was 2020, and really understanding the value of brand and marketing. And again, just doing it in a natural way. And it didn't
Right.
seem forced. To me, prior to that, I was always really nervous to partner with a marketing firm, because I felt like it was just, I just thought it was going to be an awful experience. I thought, how they're going to make me like design, colors and fonts and, come up with my tagline. And it wasn't that. It was just a more natural way to engage with your market. And again, just not feel forced. I was not a LinkedIn poster prior to 2020, and just learning it's not about getting your name out there and getting likes and impressions. It's okay, I can add value. And I was looking at things that were being posted. I'm like, man, that is not my experience. So I'm going to throw out here what my experience is. And it's been really great. You post something and you're like, I have no idea what people are going to think about it. I come from a place where I don't care what people think. This is what I'm seeing, and I'm just going to put it out there.
Yeah.
And it brings really great conversation in, and conversations I wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah. You said something earlier that I think is really interesting, which is like your business comes for referral, but you found a way to kind of work this program and kind of, enhance that. I mean, share if you will.
Yeah. So in 2020, kind of when we started this, going through your programs and the steps, it was almost like I had a whole segment of my network that I wasn't fostering these relationships with. So being able to kind of plug in, the best practices that you came with, and using them with my personal network, it
Right.
was just a match made in heaven. It was, it's exactly how you want to go to market, with what you were teaching us to do.
Right. Right. What was your story? We've talked about the marketing and branding, and I always like to ask this because there is that you mentioned imposter syndrome when you started your business, but there's also that when you start to create content. Like you also mentioned that you kind of come from a place where you don't care, but has that always been that way? Like, how was your first kind of moments of like, okay, I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna put myself out there.
Yeah. I think, well, you forced me to. I didn't want to.
Oh, it's
You
pushed. I don't force isn't push.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you pushed it. You pushed it. I mean, I think just prior to that, it's, do I know what I'm doing? Right. And I think just kind of being part of the forum, you hear from other recruiters kind of what their experience has been, or what they're going through, and you're like, wow, like, I'm not out of my mind with
Right.
what I'm thinking here. So I think just having that collaboration and validation, I guess,
Right.
was really, really helpful.
Right.
And I don't want to say like, I don't like, of course I care what people think,
Well,
but
yeah.
not from a social media perspective.
Right.
I'm just going to add that in there.
Yeah.
But I think it was kind of this, is this silly for me to put out there? And it was kind of like, well, why not? What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a common thing of, your first couple posts are like, oh man, like, I hope I don't get massive rejection. Then you realize, okay, everything's going to be all right.
Yeah. And if you do, post again in a couple days and you'll get a totally different reaction. So
Yeah. Yep.
yeah.
Well, it's kind of like the slot machine, right? You keep throwing quarters in and some of them hit and some of them don't. So
Yeah.
you just got to keep playing the game, and showing up out there. Because I mean, some of the things that I think are going to be the best received stuff don't get anything. And some of the stuff that I just whip up in a couple of seconds that I don't really even give thought to gets the most traction.
Right.
Like you said earlier, it's not really about, that. It's about just staying present, adding value, and being a resource to, to your community and network. And yeah, I mean, when you look at our work together, are there any kind of like specific, takeaways or results that you'd be willing to share?
Um, key takeaways is just to not be afraid to put yourself out there. I think that was my biggest win. I mean, it took a lot of pushing from Donnie. I mean, I was not a good student. Never been a
I
good
wouldn't say
student.
that at all, but yeah.
But it did take a lot. It took a lot for me to kind of buy into the process, use tools that were made available. I mean, for me, my key takeaway was, believing in myself, right? Like
Yeah.
I had run my own business for a few years. I was doing fine. But this really elevated me to that next level. I'd have to think about the numbers around it. But my business has grown year over year. And a lot comes from, the ability to put yourself out there, leverage your network, do it in an efficient way. So I would say that that's what I took from the program.
I love it. I love it. And I was just going to ask, like, with all of that push, that hard part you went through, but you said that you've gotten some business from those efforts of you putting yourself out there. And that's why, you impact your community, you put yourself out there, you overcome the leap, overcome your limiting beliefs, and then you get paid for it.
Yeah.
So that's a
Yep.
beautiful thing.
It is.
I think you mentioned before, you've been through some other coaching programs without mentioning names or anything. I mean, what would you say, just from your experience of working with others and me, like what is different about my program or me?
Yeah, I like the forum. I think just the way that it's set up, where, I mean, we can have one-on-one conversations, but I think you're part of a greater recruitment community. And that was 2020. And I keep in touch with most of the people that were in our pod,
Yeah.
and learning from each other. And I think that also helps with the imposter syndrome of, it comes from a place of, you can be vulnerable, like, this is what's happening. Am I the only one? Or
Right.
you might be the only one, but they're not going to make you feel like you're less than for it. So I think the format, number one, was really helpful. I think number two, a big difference is the tools that are offered can really excel your business quickly, and just the ease of connecting, not only from a client standpoint, but also candidates. It's actually helped me tremendously with market engagement on my searches. And number three, I would just say, for who you are, Donnie, I mean, you're not just a marketing person, you're more like a coach. I mean, you coached me out of my slump, and didn't give up on me, where I was certainly somebody you could have given up on. I'll give you that. But I think just the pushing and kind of getting your clients out of their comfort zone, to help them see, by doing these steps, this is the return you're going to see, and having that happen.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that feedback and sharing with those that are listening here. Going back into your story, and thank you for sharing about the Relevant Recruiter program. What are you excited about for you? I know we've got the new recruiter training that's going to be launching in September. So for those of you that are listening, make sure you reach out to Allie if you want to just explore that. I think that'll be awesome. Up-level your skills. I'm always of the thinking of, I'm always in somebody's program because I know I'm going to grab a nugget and turn it into something. But what are you excited most about for when we're just talking about Quinn Roberts? What's in the future for that, and what are you excited about?
I'm excited that in the last couple of years, we've been really able to level up on the types of searches we're taking, being in a position where, we can say, hey, I'm not the right resource for you for this particular search. We'd be better suited for, something along these lines, being able to walk away from those conversations. But, also saying with confidence, the roles that we know we could be successful on. And that's, a culmination of, I've been in this industry for 20 plus years. And I'm just really excited about taking that experience, taking the confidence into, what I hope to be continued growth moving forward. So I think there's a lot of things to be excited about. I think we're in a great position. We're in a position to grow, but we're not going to grow just to grow. We're going to make sure that the quality remains, highest level of service, and just making sure we're the best resource for our clients that we can be.
Excellent. For those that are with us still, Allie Milbrath with Quinn Roberts. We're wrapping it up here. And if you guys have enjoyed the value in Allie's story, if you can just go tap that like button or some of the reaction, maybe go in the comments and let us know what your biggest takeaway was, or ask any final questions. Would love to do that. Allie, where can our listeners connect with you online and learn more about you?
Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. You can go to our website, quinnroberts.co.com, or reach out to me directly at allie@quinn-roberts.com.
Excellent. And Allie, I always like to ask, what is your one final tip or advice for our audience on achieving excellence in your recruiting business?
Whew. To achieve excellence, I mean, it's hard work. Don't come into this industry thinking it's going to be easy. You are going to be on a roller coaster. And I think what sets people apart is when they're on a slump, being able to talk themselves out of it to get back to a peak. So you've got to have thick skin. You've got to be able to work hard. You have to be aggressive and be able to roll with the punches that this industry can give you.
Excellent. Well, Allie, thank you so much for joining me. I'm glad we finally had the opportunity to tell your story and, hear about your, success in the program, you and what you're launching with your recruiter training coming up here, and just the success you've had in your business. It's awesome to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And I guess I lied. There is one other question. Do you think that the Packers are actually going to beat the Niners this year in the playoffs?
100%.
All right. There it is.
There it is, everyone. Should we put a bet on this? You have to come to Wisconsin, wear a cheese head, and go to Lambeau with me for a game.
I won't wear a cheese head, but the Niners come to Wisconsin, I'm there. We'll go.
All right. We'll do it.
All right. Thank you guys for listening with us live. We'll be back next week, and make sure you connect with Allie and make sure you're following her and reach out about her recruiting program. We'll talk to you all soon.